presented so far, but I'll just add a little perspective to this. The challenge in pharma is that none of these pharma companies do only the domestic business or only the emerging market branded business that Manoj sir spoke of. They don't do, most of them don't do only the domestic business that Shailesh sir spoke of, and most of them don't do only the export business that Anmol was talking about. Uh, an average pharma company in India does all of these businesses. And the challenge therefore becomes is, when you look at the numbers that the company reports, it reports one profit, one ROE, one top line. You don't know how much, they're making in exports, how much are they making in emerging markets, how much are they making in domestic. And you don't know what sort of return on capital employed is the company really making. What is the return on equity of the company? So there, you sort of need to do a self deep dive, maybe take guesstimates and understand what the company is making in the domestic market as an ROE, what the company is making in US as an ROE, what the company is making in emerging markets as an ROE. And when you value that company, when you value Reliance Industries, right, you don't take the EBITDA of Reliance Industries and give it a multiple. You don't take the EPS of Reliance Industries and give it a multiple, because you understand that they are in three very, very different businesses, right? But when you look at a pharma company, most people are more than happy to give a multiple to the reported EBITDA or reported PAT. But well, that's just not right, because in some of the businesses where they have invested 60-70% of their balance sheet, they are not making any EBITDA, they are not making any PAT. So how are you valuing them at that number? If you give a loss a multiple, so some of the mid and small cap pharma companies, and this is where I'm slightly bullish on their space versus the large cap space, some of the mid and small cap pharma companies on their US exposure or on their export exposure by and large don't make any significant profit, maybe even making losses. Now, if you give a loss of multiple, what you are telling me, mathematically speaking, is that not only will that loss remain a loss, the loss will actually grow as a loss for the next 20 years. That's what the multiple implies. Now, that's just not going to happen. No entrepreneur, no businessman is going to do a business for 20 years, which is going to give him growing losses, right? So two things can happen, right? One, he closes the business because he can't make it profitable for whatever reason. And two, he actually makes it profitable. So as an investor, in both cases, I make money. How much money do I make depends on his ability to either make it profitable or just shut it and said, enough is enough, I can't do this anymore, right? So what Varinder was alluding to is just a sort of an infographic which alluded to this. I just took a hypothetical example of a pharma company which had 50% sales coming from US, 30% sales coming from India, and 20% from emerging markets, API, and contract manufacturing. And I just took the average ROE that the sector does in these markets in times like these. And what we figured was that in the US the ROEs are really, really poor. And if you were to just strip out a pharma company, strip out the US business of a pharma company and then look at its balance sheet and P&L, it would look far closer to an FMCG company, as Shailesh sir was saying, than look as a a low ROE business that it is alluded to be, right? So my simple point is, when you value conglomerates, value them as conglomerates. Don't look at them as a single businesses. And if you do that, you're just committing mathematical error.
Can you, Aditya, sorry, can you talk about any specific companies just to elaborate as you said, we have done extensive disclaimer already.
Sure.
Whatever you speak is not an invitation for anyone to buy or sell a stock. So can you just illustrate this point by speaking about a particular company?
I will, sir. So there is a stock called Ipca Laboratories. That's a company that Manoj sir has worked for already. And, we as DSP, we are, again, the disclaimer front, we as DSP, we are the largest institutional shareholders in Ipca as we speak today. So, sir, Ipca's FY14 EPS, earnings per share, was 42 rupees. Then they ran into this trouble of US FDA and, UK MHRA, WHO. They actually got banned from all three regulatory agencies. And out of that 42 rupees, if I were to bifurcate into domestic EPS and export EPS, it would be about 30 rupees of domestic EPS back in FY14 and 12 rupees of export EPS back in FY14. Then after these bans happened, and Ipca was trading at about 900 rupees, so a consolidated multiple of, let's say, about 22 times, right? Now, if you look at what happened to Ipca after these three bans came in, the consolidated EPS in FY16 for Ipca, after 2 years of FY14, FY16, Ipca's consolidated EPS was 6 rupees. Now, nothing changed in their domestic business. So that domestic business EPS should have ideally grown from 30 rupees, but let's assume it remained at 30 rupees. What happened to the export EPS? it actually went down from 12 rupees to minus 24 rupees.
Sure.
And from that perspective, Ipca stock fell down from 900 rupees to something like 300 rupees. And you know, it was still looking expensive at 300 rupees because you're looking at a 6 rupee EPS. But that doesn't make sense, right? Because you have to understand that there is a 30 rupee domestic EPS standing there. Within that 6 rupees of EPS, there's a positive 30 rupees of EPS in domestic and a 24 rupee loss in exports. So if you give the loss on exports a multiple, you know, you're committing a crime, mathematical crime. And you know, that's how we analyze the entire situation. And there are many more stocks today.